Welcome to the Forge Truth Podcast, where we're building great men as God defines greatness. Forge is a movement of men with a mission to help all men realize they're the deeply beloved, redeemed sons of the Most High God. I'm your producer, Zach, and I'm here to discuss the issues that affect men the most with our two hosts, Dr. Pete Alwinson, lifelong pastor and leader of Forge, and Jayson Quiñones, Bishop of Core Faith Church in Oviedo, Florida. Men, welcome to the show.
Hey, here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go. The triumvirate, you know, the three generations, right?
Yeah, the three generations.
Oh, yeah, because you're Gen X, right?
Yes.
Nice.
But look, he's got a dark beard, and you got some gray in your beard.
Oh, yeah, I've got a gray beard.
I mean, no, not totally. God, but anyway, three generations. Yeah. I'm glad you guys are here. Here we go.
Yeah, I've heard once you start getting gray in your beard, you can either have a beard and look old, or shave your beard and not look good. So it's like you have to choose between those two.
There's beardliness and godliness go hand in hand. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. Well, you know, today we're talking about a topic that's actually pretty central to Forge. We talk about this a lot at Forge. We're covering fire teams. Mm-hmm. And it's an important idea for all men, really. But we need to develop this idea because we're really stealing a metaphor from the military.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not immediately apparent what we mean by fire teams, but Pete, explain it for people, and I think they'll quickly get it.
None of us have been in the military, but as far as I know, both the Marines and Army utilize this concept that within a squad or platoon, there's a fire team. And so a fire team is 2 to 4 guys who are going out on mission. But while they're on mission, they're particularly focused also on not only accomplishing the mission, but protecting each other on the mission. And so, you know, they train together, they live together, they sweat, bleed together. But I love that concept. It took me a long time as a Christian because of my generation. I'm a baby boomer. If it's going to be, it's up to me. You know, we figured out we got to make this happen. But we were kind of doing life on our own, and Christianity is not that way. It really is a body, a fellowship, a unity thing where we advance the mission of Christ together. So for men, learning that we need brothers is a helpful concept, and that's what the fire team is. And so we really encourage guys to have and build a fire team. Now, it raises the question, what are the challenges of allowing a brother into your life or a brother Christian to be on your fire team? I mean, I want to throw it out there. Who should you have on your fire team?
It's a good question.
Yeah, choose wisely, right?
Seriously.
Here's the thing. As an individual, you have complete control of what goes on inside your head, right? Other people can see what you look like. They can see what your actions are. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know what's inside. That is something that's between you and God. And if you choose not to share that with anybody, it doesn't get shared. It doesn't come out until your first colonoscopy and you start saying things under anesthesia, right? That's like and then senility. Until that point, you don't have to open up anything on your internal life to anyone else. Okay. If you choose not to. If you make that choice though, you're going to wither away and die like internally, right?
If you make what choice?
To not share your internal world with someone else. Because man was not created to be alone, right? It's not good for man to be alone. That's one of the first things we know about men in the Bible. At some point, every person has to make the choice. Am I going to share my internal world, which is probably messier than my external world, with someone else?
Yeah.
And it's a hard decision, but it's the right decision. And a fire team is making that decision. Like, I'm going to do that with other guys that I actually care about. Yeah. And hopefully it's going to work out for the best. And that's a tough decision. So choose wisely, pick your guys. But like, I think that's kind of what is in the head, maybe subconsciously, of everyone who decides to do this.
Yeah. Wow. So you said we dry up if we just do life on our own. And if we never, do we really want to be known deeply as men?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to go back to the question, right? Like, who should be on your fire team? I think that's important. I think you should have some different people at different stages in your life. I like the I like the idea of diversity and discipleship, right? We need the Pauls in our lives. We need the Barnabases in our lives. You know, we need the Timothys in our lives. And I think in general, when you look at that fire team, I think you're going to have people, or you should have people in your life, more importantly than any other category, is people who really do love Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
And who are actually, as you said, they're actually on the same mission that you are on, right? So I think that that's one thing that's important when you're talking about a fire team in the biblical and Christian sense. And I think that you had to have people that love Jesus. I think you also need to have people that are actually trustworthy, and that are willing to actually invest in your life, because there are people who I love and I think highly of, but they don't have the bandwidth. You know, so you know, everybody wants Dr. Pete on their fire team. That's just not going to happen. He just doesn't have the capacity to really be, you know, he may be able to mentor, he may be able to speak into your life. You know, just
I could make an appointment, but I can't. Yeah, I can't be there for everybody all the time. Right.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's Pat Morley. Maybe he talks about it in one or some of his books. You know, that 3 o'clock in the morning, brother.
Yeah,
who
are you going to call?
And so it's thinking in those terms. So I think for me, when I look at somebody who's going to be on my fire team, it's going to definitely be someone, first of all, that they are a true follower of Jesus, that we're on that same mission together, and that on some level, you know, we may be at different stages in our life, but we have the same goal. Like, we want to be more like Jesus, and we want to fulfill the Great Commission. You know, we want to make disciples and things like that. So I don't know. That's kind of one of the things that I would say.
Yeah,
or some of the things that I would say as far as who to be on the fire team, and then I don't know.
No, that's good. I think that's good. A guy who wants to be a great husband, a great father, a great grandfather. You know, again, some of those goals. I might have a guy on my fire team who was never married, and never wanted to get married, but I doubt it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, he's got to be. Because I had to break the cycle in terms of my family. Yeah. And I need, so yeah, no, that's good. You're going in the same basic direction. Somebody you trust.
Yeah.
And somebody you love. What?
Yeah. Well,
what
I think, I would just say one more thing when I talk about like being a Christian, right? Like, I think somebody who I want on my fire team, obviously on the same mission, you know, we're moving in the same direction in general. But man, the people you want on your fire team, you want people that you know are praying for you.
Yeah.
You want guys that you know that when you say, hey, man, can you pray for me on this, that they're actually going to be praying for you, and they're actually going to be bringing you before the Father. I think that that's extremely important, because, man, we need that spiritual support more than anything else in our lives. So having those guys there, I think someone that you prays for you, someone who prays with you, you know, or a group of guys that pray with you. So, yeah, I think those things are important.
There's a movie that I really like called Good Will Hunting.
Yeah.
This is like 25 years old at this point, but I really like that movie. And there's this kind of the core group of guy friends in the movie. And they say a couple things about that friendship group in the movie that always stuck out to me. He said, he's not your friend, that's your brother. He would lay down in the street for you. And I love that idea of like, if you asked someone on your fire team, like, look, I can't explain why, but I need you to lay down in the street for me. They do it and then ask questions while they're laying there. You know, I really like that idea, is like, if you can build that kind of like sacrifice for each other, where you include each other in your like willingness to like take on risk, like not just for yourself or your family, but for each other. Another thing they say is they would take a bat to someone for you and then ask questions later, you know? But I just like this idea of, with your fire team, like they care about you like they care about themselves, right? So like they'll feel a sense of urgency if there's urgency in your life, and not just about themselves, right? Yeah. And that's hard. That's hard to find. Yeah, you do need to build that, cultivate that. Like that can't just turn a light switch and it happens immediately. But that should be a goal of your fire team, is get to this level of relationship where they care about you in a genuine sense. Like Jason is saying, like they pray for you, like they pray for themselves, right? Yeah. Like they have this concern for you in the same way that they're concerned about their own lives.
It's you said it. It's the idea of being a brother.
Yeah.
So, fraternity brothers, sometimes they'll say, hey, I have a fraternity brother I haven't seen in 20 years. He's coming into town. I can't wait to see him. Fraternities have that ability to develop that brotherhood because of the shared experiences that they went through in initiation or whatever. And I have that with a few guys in Southern California, and we were initiated into a Boy Scout organization. It was tough. And so, we've gone through that. We're brothers in that sense, but they're not spiritual brothers.
Well, what does the Bible say, right? There's a friend that sticks closer than a brother.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what we do need to do is we do need to develop that brotherhood. In the men's movement in America, in the discipleship movement for men back in the 70s and 80s, there was a real movement toward accountability groups. And some groups would put out the card that you get together with a guy and talk about how's it going with your time with the Lord, time with your wife, how's that going, your finances, your kids. And there were those 5 or 6 things that you are to hold yourself accountable to one another. And that movement it lasted for a while, but it fell apart. And I think it fell apart partly because we don't want to be held accountable, but also because really I'm only going to be accountable to somebody that loves me and that I love back. And that's where we want the fire team to be more that, those guys that you've trained with, that you've become friends with, and that you love, and they're your brother. And those are the guys that can also ask you the hard questions or say the hard things.
So would you say, when you think about the fire team, would you think that a fire team in your mind, as you envision this, would more so be guys that are around the same age, same stage of life that you are? Or would you want, because as I'm listening to you, right, I'm thinking about, you can answer, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking about afterwards.
No, no. Spill it, Bishop. Spill it.
So what I'm thinking, like when I think of fire team, like I'm thinking of guys, just for example, there's some guys in my life that our kids are not the exact same age, but they're around the same age. So reading, we went over, Raising a Modern Day Knight. So I think of the fire team as that council of fathers, so to speak, that are men that, man, I'm going to probably, if God wills, grow old with. I'm going to encourage you in this fight. We're going to lift each other up, because there's going to be some moments that I feel really, in tune. I feel really aligned, with the Lord. And there's other moments that I need someone to be like, bro, come on, man, what's up? So, I mean, is that when you're talking about fire team, would you say that is what you envision?
To some extent. And I think that what we want to do is lay this out there. I lay it out there a little bit more nebulously so guys can create their own sort of model. And, it's interesting. I have some guys that I've just walked for a lot of years here in Central Florida, and they're on my fire team. I don't get together with them or 3 or 4 other guys together.
Right.
But they're my fire team.
Right.
They're kind of spread out. And I do have some young guys too that I would consider on my fire team. That if I said, hey, listen, I'm going through this right now, would you pray? They would.
Right.
And they're younger in the Lord.
Yeah.
So I think your model, that model you laid out, where the roughly contemporary age-wise, makes sense. But I think it also could be put a little differently.
Sure.
There are people you really trust. And I think that's rare, the people you can really trust. Although I would say one other thing about this, and then I want to get your feedback on that, on Bishop's idea, is that I think the more you focus on grace, the grace of God that we have in Christ, I think it makes you more open with the real issues of your life. And I think that becoming more authentic and open starts in a fire team. That I begin to trust guys who I love and who love me. And I begin to say, by God's grace, I can share stuff. And then I realized the roof didn't cave in and my world didn't come apart because I was honest.
Yeah.
And then the grace of God, it just enables you to then become more authentic. And then it's amazing how your authenticity can open up, I think. That's what I think. I don't know. What do you think about the age group thing?
Yeah, well, someone said friendship is just finding someone that makes you say, you too, you know? Like, yes. I think obviously the friendship thing is it's the most basic, central, simple way to think of a fire team, right? Like, obviously your best friend is probably a really good candidate for your fire team because they know you the best, they care about you the most. Like, those are the qualities you need in a fire team, right? And so, but and obviously you're going to connect the best with people that are at the same stage of life as you are, the same background as you are. Like, those are the people you're going to naturally connect with. And because we're all fallen people, you'll care about people more the more you connect with them. You know what I mean? Like there's people that you don't gravitate towards.
That's right.
And it's harder to open up to those people.
That's right.
And it's ingrained in us, right? We don't want to build stronger bonds with people that we don't enjoy being around, you know,
or that you don't trust.
And trust is so important.
It is,
especially in this situation, because essentially a fire team is about trust. You have to trust them enough with your real self to go to them with your real problems to get real help.
That's right.
And that all depends on trust.
Yep. So fire team. A guy on your fire team is a guy who you enjoy being with, but also who will say, "Hey, why are you doing that?" Or it seems to me you should stop doing that. You know, I mean, those are the kind of guys you want.
Yeah, probably what you don't want is a bunch of yes men.
That's right.
Around. You don't want guys that are just going to encourage your worst instincts. Okay, you don't need cheerleaders in a fire team. Imagine in a military context, your fire team is full of cheerleaders. Like, that's not going to go well. Okay, on a mission.
That's right.
You're not looking for cheerleaders or yes men. You're looking for people that have your back in a real sense, right? And so if you're going the wrong direction, that means helping you to turn around.
Yeah.
Well, I think one of the first books that I read that kind of dealt with something like this was, I think it's Jonathan Dodson, Gospel Centered Discipleship, and he calls the fire team a fight club, and kind of brought it from that concept from the movie with Brad Pitt. And I like the 3 points that he makes about, when you get together with these guys that are in your fight club, your fire team, and it's that you know your sin, fight your sin, trust your Savior. And so in those times that you're together, it's be honest, know your sin, whatever it is that I may be struggling with, and then you fight your sin. What does God's word say about this? But then you have the grace component, which is we trust our Savior because we can't save ourselves. The other thing, in studying with our men, a while back, we were going through another book and we were doing a study. And the one point that the author, Vince Miller, he pointed out, he was talking about accountability and brotherhood. And he said, you have to make yourself accountable. You don't put the pressure on the person to say, hey, I need you to hold me accountable, because we all run from accountability when we're tired of it, but I'm going to make myself accountable. So for whatever it is, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to make the effort to open myself up. And I think that once you build that trust, I think we seek that trust, we pursue it. But then we have to make sure that we're being honest, because that's the other thing too. We have those ugly, dark things that we think we're the only one that's ever thought that. We're the only one that's ever felt that. And, it's tough.
Satan wants to make us feel like we're the only one going through this or has ever gone through this. Nobody else has this.
Right.
No, you too. I love that. That's true.
Yeah. And here's the truth is, until you're like 25, it's a lot easier to coast and still make strong relationships. But after you're in your 30s and 40s, unless you're intentional about relationships, they will atrophy. You have to be intentional in relationships. Otherwise, the busyness of life will pull people apart.
Men have to be intentional about building relationships because we're so focused on building our career and so focused on building our families. We get married, we got our wife, and then we got kids, and our life's crazy. We're full throttle men going a million miles an hour and with other guys. Thank you for bringing that up. You have to be intentional. And we're not usually trained. Like my dad never, I don't know any real deep friends my dad had. So I had to figure that out, the friendship thing. And guys that you could trust. And when I first realized I needed to be accountable and to have some friendships like this, it took me a year thinking of some guys. I mean, because I didn't want to be accountable. You know, I didn't want anybody asking probing questions of my life. And until I really realized that I felt alone as a husband, I felt alone as a father. I just felt alone as a leader, as a pastor. And I didn't have any close friends because I had to act like I had it all together. And you know, grace enables you to really face the real you. But so you have to be intentional. That's so good. That's so important. And so men of all generations have to deal with that differently. I don't know if, you know, Gen Z guys find that easier to build friendships, or you Gen Xer guys, or you millennials. I don't know.
Well, I think part of it is temperament. You know, I forget. I was reading an article one time, and they were talking about the issue with, you know, Gen Z, and the author said, "Listen, you Gen Xers and you Boomers, realize something. You were just like Gen Z on some level. You had issues just like they have. When you look at it, you had, you know, insecurities, you had laziness, you had, right? Like, so now there is a difference, right? There are some generational differences and things like that, but I think temperament matters. You know, there's some people, they're just built temperamentally where they're not going to go deep in relationship. They're just going to be superficial. And it's not because they're trying to be superficial. It's because they're built like that. They're
temperamentally superficial.
Right, yeah, and it's because they don't want to get deep in emotions. They don't want to deal with, you know, like the deep. They want to have fun. You know, they want to enjoy themselves. And then you have other people that they're more depressing and they just want to get deep and everything is emotional. And you know, it's
temperament plays into this. There's no doubt.
So I think, you know, because for me, I've shared this before, but you know, like when the first youth camp I went away to after becoming a Christian, you know, my grandmother came to me and she was like, "Jason, do not tell everyone everything." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And it's because I'm an open book. Like I could care less what I was saying, but she's like, they're going to care and they're going to judge you because you're such an open book. And, you know, your heart is different. You're not like that, but that's just who you are. And so I'm built a certain way when it comes to that. I'm willing to divulge whatever, you know, I'm never, you know, when I get up on the pulpit, even my wife, she's like, you know, you got to be careful what you share, you know, in the place of vulnerability. And I'm like, and so I temper that stuff. But I mean, this past week, I was sitting down with, you know, a couple of guys from our church. And that's the other thing that I try not to do is I definitely want to have guys that see me on a weekly basis who know me and they know the real me. And they can hear
your church,
right?
As a pastor in your church, yeah.
And they're leaders, you know. It's not like I just go to every guy in the church and say, "Hey guys, I just want you to know that I wanted to punch someone in the face." There's a couple of guys that I may say that to, and I really mean it. Like I really had these feelings, and you know, and I express that because I want to be vulnerable and I want to be honest because I think. Man, if I read scripture correctly, I don't think these guys were hiding from each other. I mean, Paul is like, imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he had issues, you know, but there was some Jesus that he was imitating. So anyway, I think that for me, that's important right there.
Okay, you know, which raises a question. We ought to be a little more biblical on this. Are there any biblical examples of guys that had fire teams and men that they were close to, that they were accountable to and help them grow?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, the best example is probably Jesus had 12 disciples that lived with him, did ministry with him. But even within the 12, there was an inner circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you analyze that? Peter, James, and John in the inner circle.
Yeah.
And all three of those guys were some of the toughest guys. The sons of thunder and Peter. Are you kidding me?
Well, they were fishermen together.
Yeah.
Like those three guys were like in business together. They had boats alongside each other. And so they had so much in common, shared background, from the same place. Like they knew each other for a long time. And then they get incorporated into the disciples, that those relationships don't go away. And obviously all the disciples, I'm sure, were very close with each other. But yeah, there was that inner circle, that fire team among that larger network of friends.
And they were always talking, Jesus is out front and then they're talking back here. Yeah, they talked a lot.
Racing each other.
Yeah. What other examples do we have maybe of a fire team?
I mean, when you read Paul, right, he's got people around him. He's got Titus. He's got Timothy. That he's expressing his love for them. Epaphras. You have Luke. I mean, these are people that are walking with him, encouraging him. He speaks to the churches of their encouragement and, them participating in the gospel with him when he's writing the Philippians and things like that. So I think that we see this as it's a natural thing that we see, and I'm going to say 2,000 years ago, in the context of which the scriptures in the New Testament were written, that is so different from what we see today.
Yeah.
In this side of the world, right? The more westernized, individualism, that's a big deal. And so I think we see that. And that's where us as men, we have to fight against that tendency to that individualism. And I'm just going to do it on my own. And I'm not going to reach out to guys, even though the truth is, most guys, if we're honest, we are yearning for these relationships.
Yeah.
Even though we don't want to necessarily divulge our hearts and be completely vulnerable, man, we really want this. Like, there is something inside of us that wants that relationship with other brothers, even if it's just a couple.
Totally. You highlighted the rugged individualism of America. If there's one country in history that developed out of rugged individualism, it's our country. Yeah. And that has gotten so much into our manhood DNA. But I agree with you 100%. I think we want to be known as men, known for who we are and accepted for who we are. Not necessarily the bad side, but we want to be known. We want some guys, to know us and kind of accept us for who we are. Yeah. I think that's the way God made us. And so we really, I think in the Old Testament, Jonathan and David, I mean, they were buds.
Yeah.
And
what about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego?
I mean, that was, and Daniel was clearly the leader of those guys at the beginning, but they were a crew. They hung out together and they decided to follow God together, and not to cave into the culture. So see, that's the other thing is, if I have a brother who really loves me and he's following Jesus, like you said, going in the same direction I'm going, then when he sees my tendency to veer off, he's going to come after me. But the rest of the culture is just going to say, "Hey, keep going that way."
Yeah. Or the other side too. I think as you pointed out, those accountability groups lost steam because there's only the negative connotation of accountability. But there's the positive side. It's like, man, brothers see the direction you're going and like encourage you, man. Keep fighting. You may be struggling. This may look like it's a dead end or whatever the case is, but bro, keep on persevering, and having those brothers breathing life into you is so important, because it's not just divulging your heart and your brokenness and your sin, but it's also like, man, I'm struggling in this area just to persevere.
That's right.
My business is struggling, my church is struggling, my marriage is struggling, whatever. And it's not necessarily because of sin. It's just difficult seasons that we go through. And you have brothers that are there to just speak into your life, to speak life, into you. I mean, I think that's important, because I can tell you of conversations that I've had that I've walked away more discouraged and more frustrated, like, man, do I need to keep going? And then I've also can tell you of conversations that were just life-giving because as I shared and they just spoke, man, I see this in you. I see these things. It reminds me of Peter with his sons, when we interviewed him, a few weeks back. And just, man, there was that word that he has over each of his sons.
Yeah.
And just continues to speak into that, right? That encouragement. So I think that's the other side that we miss, because we don't necessarily want to be vulnerable.
There's a whole other side to this, and I don't know, we're getting close to our time wrapping up, but the whole other side of this too is if men have godly brothers who are helping them grow, then all of the burden for their spiritual life does not fall on their wife or their kids. And there are things that at times, this is going to sound heretical, that I didn't tell my wife. I couldn't tell my wife that I needed to work through with a brother or my elder board or somebody else because we're raising kids. She didn't need that pressure. And if I'm codependent on my wife for everything, it's going to lead to potentially some unhealthy situations.
Yeah. I mean, we all carry a lot inside, and you have to spread that around. If you can't lay that all on someone else. That's right. That's too big of a burden for any individual to do, except Jesus, right? We can lay it all on Jesus.
That's right. He can take it all. He's got broad shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this was a fun discussion, guys, talking about fire teams and the importance of that relationship. I want to thank everyone at home for listening to this episode of the Forge Truth podcast. If you have any questions or comments about what we talked about today, you can email the show at forgetruth.com. You can share the show with a friend. This could be your way to say like, hey, let's join a fire team, listen to this episode, and let's get together for breakfast. Pete, will you lay a challenge for our men today?
Yeah. Guys, thanks for listening. And this is a big picture kind of thing, but is a crucial thing to get down into your life. And I just want to reiterate what Bishop said. I need older guys like a Paul that can teach me. I need people like Barnabas that can encourage me. And I need young guys to pour into and who, in a fresh way, pour back into my life as well. What a joy it is to be on mission for Jesus. And I just encourage you to have brothers that go with you.